In today's Leeds news, Zetterer inquiry made, Piroe move imminent, Leeds season predictions, and Ampadu never thought twice about his new deal. Tuesday the 18th of August, Jer here at the Leeds View. We do these from a Monday to a Friday, as well as a transfer wrap-up at the weekend, and 2 podcasts a week. We're part of the Talk Sport Fan Podcasting Network. If you want to support the channel, you can subscribe to us on YouTube or give us a follow and a channel rating over on all of your audio platforms. The new season is right upon us, and we're getting ready for it. We've launched our full schedule for the new season. We've got a couple of new shows as well. The Match View will be back tonight. Myself, Paul and Jerry having a look ahead to the upcoming season. We've also added the Wider View, which will bring Andrea Russo and the Donna Storin to give a kind of a more media-focused view on Leeds United each week, as well as the Big Up streams, which will be on YouTube to start with until that platform gets fixed. Sunday sessions for members, and we'll have the Other View, which is our opposition view, which will look at the other side that will be involved in Leeds United's games. The first one of that will be this Thursday with Nottingham Forest. Rich has joined us from the 1865 podcast. That will be on audio only. So if you want to check that out, you can go over to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get them. I'm really excited about this. We're nearly there. We have our first watch along this Saturday over on YouTube. But there's a bit of stuff to get stuck in the meantime. A couple of really short transfer updates. Our players that Leeds have been linked with that have situations that have been changing in the last 24 hours. Rafael Leao has been offered to AS Roma. He's been offered to everybody at this stage. They said no. No surprise to anybody there, and it now looks like he is heading towards Saudi Arabia. And Igor Piroe also looking like he could be heading towards Saudi Arabia come the end of the transfer window. I think their window's open a little bit longer, so a bit more time for them to get it done. But it looks like that's the only league that's going to be in a position to afford both of those players this summer. Or we start off with Leeds United's transfer business, and there's a goalkeeper been linked today. So Leeds apparently have a list of 5 to 6 goalkeepers, and one of the options we heard about over the last couple of weeks is Orlando Hill. They are going to deputise behind James Trafford this season. That's kind of gone a little bit quiet, but there is a few other names that are on that list, and a brand new name that popped up last night and again into this morning with a few more details is 31-year-old German goalkeeper Michael Zetterer. Now, several outlets in Germany have linked Leeds United with making an inquiry at the very minimum for Zetterer, and that's coming from Absolute Fußball, Yahoo Sport and Sport 1, who've all said Leeds have had an inquiry made for the goalkeeper. Now, Eintracht Frankfurt are having some goalkeeping issues, I suppose, that we can call it, or at least a rejigging of their goalkeeping department. Their first choice goalkeeper, Santos, has gotten injured, but he's also had a nightmare of a pre-season campaign. He conceded 7 against Brentford, and that's forced Frankfurt into possibly looking at bringing in a brand new number 1. Zetterer will then deputise as a number 2 and has been described as being on the fringes of the Eintracht Frankfurt side. Sport 1 claimed that Leeds have interest in him as a backup goalkeeper, and that's also been backed up by a report earlier this month that came from Kicker. Now, the issue here from a Leeds perspective is going to be the finances of this deal. According to all of the reports, Frankfurt are quoted as saying they would like an attractive figure for the backup number 1, but they are, as I say, bringing in a new goalkeeper. But they're believed to want €20 million for Zetterer. So that's about 15.5, 16 million pounds for a 31-year-old backup. And that seems incredibly unlikely. From Leeds' perspective, I don't know, ask them, do they fancy a loan with an option? They're very popular this summer, and see if they'll bite their hands off. But it doesn't look like Leeds are going to make an imminent move for Zetterer. The report says that Leeds would be interested should Frankfurt soften their approach on the goalkeeper. His contract runs until 2029, and you do get the feeling this is one of those ones this year where Leeds have gone, look, there's an offer, we'll leave it on the table, have a think about it, and come back to us if you change your mind. But Leeds spending upwards of £15 million for a number 2 goalkeeper, on top of spending £40 million on their number 1 when they've got priorities up front and in the attacking area of the park, seems incredibly unlikely to me. The description of the current situation around this transfer has been described as fluid, one of this summer's buzzwords. But that likely means at least talks have taken place or are taking place, or at least there's an open door there should they decide to revisit it. Zetterer has played the bulk of his career as the number 1 at Werder Bremen. He moved to Eintracht Frankfurt last summer. He kind of rotational option there for them last year, but is being labelled as being the fringe player coming into this season. So if that price tag changes, I'm surprised Leeds are paying any kind of money for a backup goalkeeper. I thought they'd look at someone maybe a bit more experienced and on a free. But we'll see what they'll do. We'll keep an eye on it. There's still, I don't know, 4 other goalkeepers apparently on their shopping list, and we'll see what happens in the next 2 weeks. You've got 4 players to get done in 2 weeks, so the clock is ticking. Hopefully we'll see Nico Elvedi tonight. We'll move on. Right, so Joel Piroe could be a West Ham player as early as today, depending how everything lines out. Reports last night from The Athletic confirmed that Leeds United had given Joel Piroe permission to travel down to London to complete his medical at West Ham United, which would indicate that the deal is very close to being done. One little snag or little issue that's been highlighted by quite a lot of people is that Leeds need to activate the 1-year extension in Joel Piroe's contract before they sanction the move for him to go. Nuno Espirito Santo has also said to have wanted Piroe as his top target after they missed out on Troy Parrott, who's heading to Real Betis this summer. And after their initial draw in the Championship, they're labelled as being a little bit thin on the ground when it comes to a striker. But also see Piroe link up with Manor Solomon, and they had a fantastic relationship when they played for Leeds United in the Championship. If Piroe does complete that move today, as we all know, it's a loan with an obligation to buy should West Ham get promoted. £15 million obligation and £1 million loan fee up front, which will help Leeds United from an SCR perspective. At the very minimum, it's not ideal, but it's better than a kick in the arse. Leeds, as I say, will have to activate that additional year on his contract. That has been labelled as being part of the negotiations in the last couple of days and needs to get sorted out. And if West Ham go up, the Leeds will get a significant amount of money. Now, what's interesting in this is that stories come out today from the Netherlands that says Ajax actually made a move for Joel Piroe earlier in the transfer window, and they were put off by Leeds' asking price. Jordi Cruyff was said to want them in the club. They had a very short conversation with Leeds. Leeds said we want £16 million or €18.7 million. And Ajax said, you're mad, you're not getting that. And they moved off elsewhere. Paul Brooker's done a little bit of a deep dive into the money on this as well. And it's not actually that bad of a deal from an SCR perspective for Leeds at all. Piroe's on $2 million a year. It's about 40 grand a week. So that wages have been taken by West Ham completely. That helps from one perspective. It will at least cover the cost of some players within the squad. And his book value is around £2.5 million. So if Leeds were to bring in £15 million from next season, his book value will drop again by the end of this season. It'll be a decent profit for Leeds United. So not the end of the world, but ideally if Leeds are trying to get more players in this summer, you'd like to have that money now. But it is what it is. And we'll move on for now. Right, everyone's having their say on who's going to finish where and what's going to happen this season as we get closer and closer to the kickoff this weekend. And tonight, myself, Paul and Jerry will open the Match View podcast and look ahead to this season and what we think will happen. And we'll probably be completely wrong on absolutely everything that we say. But Leeds' name, which is really interesting to me this summer, Leeds' name hasn't been popping up an awful lot in pundits' conversations. They're talking about relegation in European places, and Leeds just kind of gently floating under the radar, which I'm absolutely okay with. Leeds Live had a deeper look into what people think about it this season for Leeds United, and they've looked at the bookies' odds and what people are putting their money on who to finish where this season. And it's an interesting one. Leeds United are outsiders for the title with a 500 to 1 price tag, 151 to finish in the top 2, and 14 to 1 for top 5 finish. Leeds are 6 to 1 for relegation from the Premier League this season. So if you fancy putting a few quid on Leeds to win a title, 500 to 1 is not bad odds at all. Dominic Calvert-Lewin is Leeds United's favourite for the overall Golden Boot in the Premier League next season. He's in at 4 to 11. And Harry Wilson and Noah Okafor are clocking in at 7 to 1 for the Golden Boot as well. Now, Isaac Johnson's also had a look at his own take on this. And basically, he's followed the same lines as Daniel Farke and Prag Morate, basically saying that you've got to be mindful of the second season in the Premier League. We saw what happened with Leeds when they were in the Premier League last time round. After a 9th place finish, we fought and just about avoided relegation the final day of the season. That's a major part of it. This is a season of consolidation as far as Johnson sees it. And again, I don't think a lot of Leeds fans would have a huge problem with that if that was to be the case. But most people have Leeds United finishing in between 12th place and 9th place this summer, which again, I think is a good progression of a season for Leeds United. It's not a massively stressful season for Leeds. So I think we'd all take that. And yeah, a season of consolidation for Leeds United. And again, that would be a nice season for Leeds. And you never know. Stranger things have happened. I mean, nobody expected Sunderland to get into Europe last season, and they did. It probably be a little bit early. Isaac Johnson says that as well. The talk of a European place is probably a little bit premature, and definitely from a financial perspective, Leeds might want to wait until the stadium redevelopment is done before they start pushing for those European spots if they can get there in a couple of years' time. Let's move on and talk about Ethan Ampadu. Leeds had their media day yesterday, so we're starting to get lots of quotes coming out from players that sat down with the media for a chat. Ethan Ampadu, Leeds skipper, was one of those, and he's had a very eventful summer that was worth talking to. Adam Crafton from The Athletic sat down with Ampadu to have a chat about his brand new Leeds United deal, the process that went into that, his monster of a long throw that's gotten a lot of focus over the course of this summer, as well as what the expectations are for Leeds heading into the new season. And Ampadu signing his new deal at Leeds United has still been seen as one of the biggest and best bits of business that Leeds did this summer. There were a host of top clubs floating around as he headed into the final year of his contract and eyeballing a chance of bringing him into their club. There are very few consistent central defensive midfielders in the Premier League of a high level, and Ampadu is absolutely one of those. But Ampadu said he didn't think twice about signing his new deal at the club, and on the topic he said this: everyone can always get to a point where they might have some interest. I wanted to renew here. I'm very excited about where this club could go. I was focused on that rather than taking an interest in what else was out there. It was never a forced conversation. It was always quiet and open dialogue, and it was a good, healthy conversation. Ampadu's had a lot of clubs, specifically on loan when he was at Chelsea, and he's talked about Leeds feeling like home, and he's found his place in the Premier League. And he also talked about the potential of European football as well, and said that the owner's push for Leeds to get back into European spots over the next couple of years is something that he absolutely wants to be a part of. Moving on to his long throw, he's talked an awful lot about that. It appears to have gotten longer over the course of the summer. Leeds have adapted the routine as well. That's already seen Leeds score some goals. And on the topic, he said this: in my career, I had once taken a long throw and it really wasn't far. So I didn't even know that I had a long throw. I got a bit of stick at the start of last season for having the shortest long throw, but it was getting better and better just through repetition. Leeds scored 5 goals from Ethan Ampadu's 135 long throws last season, which doesn't sound like a huge amount, but he was second only to the number 1 in the league, who was Brentford's Michael Zetterer, and they scored 6 from that. So those 5 goals can go an awful long way to picking up additional points. And we've already seen this summer that Leeds have scored a couple of goals off the back of a long throw. Calvert-Lewin's got 2 in the American tour, and we saw Muharrimovic get the overhead kick off the back of a long throw as well. So it's an absolute massive weapon, another string to Leeds United's attacking ball going into the season. He moved on then to talk about last season, the turning point in the year, and he pointed to exactly the same thing that we've all spoken about, that very clear line in the season, half-time against Manchester City, and talked about how all of the players began to pull together to try and achieve Leeds United's goals, and they absolutely did that. But moving on to the expectations of the new season, Ampadu said this: I can't say, because then people are going to focus on it. The minimum is understanding that the second year in the Premier League can still be as hard as the first year. So first we need to make sure that we stay up. Then we want to push on from where we finished last season, and we feel like we can do that. I think one of the most important parts is get to that 40-point mark as quickly as they can. A strong start to the season will go an awful long way to doing that. Daniel Farke's sides don't tend to start seasons particularly strongly. They finished them very, very strongly. But I think the fact that Leeds have had a couple of additional friendlies this summer, they've looked very, very fit, very, very sharp in pre-season already. I think that goes an awful long way to helping the start of the season. If they can pick up some wins in the early part of the year, it can take a lot of pressure off the rest of the season. They can focus on what's above them rather than what is below them. But there we go. Quiet enough day. Nick Olvedi likely to be announced as a Leeds United player later on today. He'll need to, because they need to get him registered if he wants to be part of the squad on Saturday. We'll have the watch along over on YouTube this week until Big Up is fixed and sorted out. You can check that out if you want to. And keep an eye over on the audio podcast if you want to get the opposition view from Rich from Nottingham Forest, who's given us a bit more detail on what their summers look like and what their surprise packages could be heading into the game against Leeds United at the weekend. And then the second string sides that will likely take the field in the League Cup game 3 days later. Folks, that'll be it for me today. Have a great rest of your day. Talk to you soon. See ya. Bye.